bourbon selection.
Sorry?
I'm loving the bourbon selection.
Hashem, gotta keep you happy.
Whatever I can put
Shabbos for the beautiful spread. Again, incredible. Yashikach really Tzvi does this on his own for us. Yashikach to Reb Eli, to the rest of the Chavra for always introducing the shir. It's important. Erev Shabbos is a different kind of shir. It's already again a little bit of Shabbos. So once it's already a little bit of Shabbos, You can't go straight into the shir. You have to have a little bit of negina, a little bit of singing, a little bit of zimra. Now Rabbi Nachman says, we learned this actually many, many moons ago in our Rabbi Nachman shir. Rabbi Nachman says that Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Meraglim, Kichu mizimras haaretz. Kichu mizimras haaretz, which literally means take of the vines. The Rebbe says no. Kichu mizemiros haaretz. Take the songs of Eretz Yisrael. Take the music of Eretz Yisrael. You'll say, what's the music of Eretz Yisrael? The music of Eretz Yisrael is the nigun that lives in the neshama. Every single Yid and every single Jew, there's a nigun, there's a song. And every single Jew, there's music. Whether you know music, you don't know music, you have a good voice, you're tone deaf, there's a nigun inside of each of us. And the entirety of life is to find your nigun. That's the entirety of life, is to find your music. Kichu mizimras haaretz. Find the zemiras, find the song. So we come on our Erev Shabbos together with this, again, sweet thank you. The food is so beautiful and so delicious. Thank you. And a little bit of a l'chaim and beautiful music, and hopefully the beautiful Torah of the Chalban and the Meretz Hashem. Hopefully by the time we leave here tonight, we won't fully discover our zimra, our zemira, our nigun, but in Meretz Hashem, hopefully we'll be a little bit closer. Shabbos said, we're going to continue in Meretz Hashem in the Chalban. So Baruch Hashem, a couple of, thank God, we have a number of new members to this year tonight. So just to give a little bit of background, we're learning from a beautiful sefer called Talalei Chaim. Talalei Chaim was written by Reb Chaim Cohen, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, who was one of the great Mikubalim of Eretz Yisrael, known as the Chalban. The Chalban, literally the milkman, the dairy worker, because the Chalban, this Mukubal was a dairy worker. He worked in the Tenuva dairy factory. And he was one of the greatest Mikubalim in Eretz Yisrael. And we're learning his sefer of Hakitzu, Hakitzu Ranenu, which is a sefer all about Galus and Geula. And we're going through this. So again, just kind of like a quick recap. The beautiful part is, you'll see already, we don't move that quickly in this year, because Baruch Hashem, there's so much to appreciate, there's so much to take in. But essentially, remember again, the Chalban has introduced us to a totally new understanding of Galus and Geula, right? Up until we started learning the Chalban, so Galus is diaspora, Geula is redemption, Mashiach, but we've seen from the Chalban that really Geula, or the Pnimius, is the highest level when I recognize that the greatest part of me is not my individual identity, but rather, again, it's my ability to be part of the whole. The highest level a Jew could reach is when I realize I'm part of a body. I'm not just an individual, I'm part of a collective, I'm part of a klal. Now remember again, I'm an individual the same way that each limb has its own individual identity. But at the same time, the limb is really only impactful and meaningful when it's part of the body. Right? So the leg has its own identity as a leg. But lamaisa, a leg that's amputated from the body, it doesn't do anything. But the leg, when it's attached to the body, suddenly is functional, suddenly is meaningful. So the pnimius, what it means to be part of Klal Yisrael, at the end of the day is you realize that you're a limb that's part of the collective. Chitzonius is individual identity. My identity as an individual. And the Chalban posits that in Galus, all you have is chitzonius. In Galus, and I will say this is, I think, one of the most startling things that we kind of stumbled upon a few weeks ago, that up until we started coming to this year, if somebody were to ask you, what is your core avoda? Somebody were to stop you on the street, you're walking out, what's your core avoda? What's your core obligation in life? You would have said? To work on myself, to become a good person. And the truth is, that's the correct answer. The Chalban says the only problem is, that's a Galus answer. That's a chitzonius answer. That's an individualistic answer. Because when you're in Geula, you recognize that what's my goal? My goal is to be part of the collective. My goal is to be part of the body. My goal is to be part of Klal Yisrael. My goal is to be part of the whole, not to be an individual who stands alone, but to be a limb who has an individual identity, but who functions as part of the total body. The Chalban then went on, this is what we focused on last year, is what we're going to pick up more on this week, is Torah of Galus is different than Torah of Geula. So we'll say, when we think about Galus, or diaspora, Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, we were exiled, we're still living in that exile. So we think about the ramification of exile as us as individuals. But we forget that sometimes Galus itself has an impact on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Galus even has an impact on Torah. To which the Chalban says so beautifully, that at the end of the day, even Torah in Galus is fundamentally different. How so? And the Chalban explains so beautifully that Torah in Geula is multifaceted, has many different levels to it, many different dimensions. There's a panemius of Torah as well. What do we have in Galus? So if you remember again, we're going to pick up on page Mem Zayin, which is hopefully the first page you have on your handout. Yeah. So page Mem Zayin, the last paragraph. So here again, the Chalban says so beautifully. He writes, Zeu she'amru chachamim, miyom shecharav beis hamikdash eino la'HaKadosh Baruch Hu ela dalet amas shal halacha. But say I ended off with this at the end of the shir last week. But if you think about it, what is diaspora Jewry's greatest contribution to Torah? Diaspora Jewry's greatest contribution to Torah is Talmud Bavli. Talmud Bavli, right, is hands down the greatest contribution to Torah, right? There's a whole new body of Torah that Baruch Hashem many of us are zochet to learn each and every day. We learn Daf Yomi, we learn Talmud Bavli each and every day. What is Talmud Bavli focused on? What is it focused on? Halacha. Right now, again, we know from Gemara that halacha often is a circuitous journey, right? You start in one place, you end off somewhere else, you go here, you go there. But at the end of the day, the entire essence of Talmud Bavli is halacha. So says the Chalban something amazing. The Torah of Galus is Dalet Amos Shal Halacha. Because Rabbi say, what is halacha focused on? What is halacha focused on? What should I do? Right? I want to navigate as a proper Jew. So what should I do? Halacha is the practical way for me to live as an individual. And it governs everything. Halacha governs how I put my shoes on in the morning. Halacha governs how I get dressed. Halacha governs how I wash my hands. Halacha governs how I conduct business. And it governs everything. Halacha is everything. Think about this. There's not one part of our lives that's not touched by halacha. So says the Chalban something amazing. That's part of the function of Galus. Because Galus Torah is an individual Torah. Galus Torah is a very utilitarian Torah. Galus Torah tells you what to do and how to do it. V'yachius hatu emes es hayachid shu ke'ever bekever v'amnam kimo osa havla degarmi. So skip down a little bit. Actually, we'll say turn the page. Gam kach page memches kach shegam im bechitzonios yarda haTorah ploim. Torah has changed. Remember again, we saw last week's shir had the Chalban described the Torah of Geula. Remember how he described it? You don't have it in this packet, but I'll read to you. It was the best line. Remember how he described it? We'll say a little chazara. How did the Chalban describe the Torah of Geula? He Elyona, he Ma'od. That's how the Chalban described it. Which means what? It's great. It's great. Really, that's all? Yeah, it's great. Remember the mashal we gave when you want to tell your wife or you want to tell your kids how much you love them. I see, what can you say? I love you very much, I love you a lot, I love you more than anything else. There are no words to really capture the way you really feel about someone who you love. The Chalban says that's what Torah of Geula was. Hi Elyona, hi ad ma'od. It's a different level of Torah. It's a different understanding of Torah. Remember again, the Chalban said this is why the Torah has no discussion of Olam Haba. Well, we'll see this in just a moment. So look what page Memches. Kach shegam im bechitzonios yarda haTorah ploim. V'nitzamtzima ma'od. Torah is contracted. Hine bepnimius ganus koach adyer. Page Memches. In the pnimius of Torah, in the inner workings of Torah, there is such a profound koach. Ne'elam v'nistar. It is hidden. Sheyishmor al Yisrael b'chol shanos hagalos. Umikoach misirosam lidbok b'Torah yakumo l'tchias olamim. Ach mikol makom peulas haTorah begalus lo tofia b'hasaga mi'ira. There is not the same level of clarity of Torah in galus that there is in Geula. Even in galus, Torah is different. Even in galus, Torah is not as revealed. V'lo begilui shchina. Ela b'seiser hamadrega yisparnesu haneshamas yizdachachu hanefashos mitumas chatoim at shiyuchsheru loshav lechadeshim mikikedem. So I will say this is an overwhelming idea because this idea, you remember again the Chalban mentioned this last week, the idea that we struggle with things, right? We struggle with things. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? That's a function of a certain level of hester, of a certain level of hiddenness of Torah. You see, in Geula, in times of Geula, do you understand all of Torah? Do you understand all of Torah? No. But what's the difference? You don't need to. See, in Geula, Torah just feels right. I understand some things, I don't understand other things. It's okay. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. In Galus, where the ikar of Torah is halacha, the ikar of Torah is what to do, how to do it. If I don't understand something, or something doesn't appeal to my isms, to my gist, to my that, so suddenly again I'm in existential conflict. That's Galus. That's Galus. And that's because the many deeper dimensions of Torah are not revealed to us. And I will say, the sad part about reading something like this is what? Is that there's no way, there's no remedy to this. In other words, the Chalban is explaining to us a state of being. He's explaining to us a certain state of being. And he's hoping that by explaining to us a state of being, what hopefully it does is it awakens within us a sense of yearning for Mirtz Hashem, what is going to come. Lefichach. Therefore, the Chalban goes, I forgot to mention, tonight's shir is dedicated by Rabbi Yehuda Buchwalter in honor of the upcoming Shabbos of his Orurus. So, mamish, it's a hachana for the hachana. Preparation for the preparation of Yehuda Yashakayach. Thank you. Lefichach. I will say second paragraph, page Memches. Well, we're going to bring this together in just a moment. Lefichach. B'chashchas hagalus. Shuv lo nira pri hameir misoch abdus hakodesh. Rabbi say this is incredible. Sometimes in the dark, Rabbi say, listen to these lines. Each of these lines, it's a shir by themselves. In the darkness of Galus, Rabbi said, let's translate these words. In the darkness of Galus, the luminescent fruit of spiritual labor is not seen. B'ziv umesikas hamitzvos, and the luminescence, the sweetness of mitzvahs, lo heir bigiloi rav, doesn't shine as brightly. You see, Rabbi, what the Chalban is saying over here is something so incredibly amazing. We know, we love Torah. We're here because we love Torah. But the truth is, sometimes we love Torah more, sometimes we love Torah less. There are many others who don't love Torah at all. And you wonder to yourself, how could a person not love Torah? How could it be that a person doesn't love Torah? So sometimes it's because they don't know Torah. You can't love what you don't know. But Lamaisa says the Chalban something amazing. In Galus, so much of the true beauty and profundity of Torah is obscured. You can't see it. The full beauty doesn't come out. The full greatness doesn't come out. Ki ha'or ne'elam v'hashefa nistalik, because the light, the true light of Torah is often hidden. O az hutzrichu chachmei Yisrael hakadoshim baruch Hashem asher alehem lahotzi matmonim ledalos me'otzros hasod hamadregos hasidus. Supposed to listen to this. So says the Chalban. He doesn't say it explicitly, but here's what he means. That's why you know, Emirtz Hashem, we're going to come to Lag BaOmer. And so we'll say, so what's the celebration of Lag BaOmer? What's the celebration of Lag BaOmer? So again, okay, so the Ramah brings down that it's the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying, but we know again, that's part of it, but what's the real Simcha of Lag BaOmer? It's the yard site of Rashbi, Rabbi Shem Bar Yochai. Rashbi. And we'll say, what did Rashbi, the Zohar writes in Idra Zuta, what did Rashbi do on the last day of his life? Rashbi gathered, right, his son, Rabbi Lazar, and a number of his Talmidim around his bed, and he revealed to them the hidden dimensions of Torah. He revealed to them what we call Torah's Hanistar. Later it goes on to be called Kabbalah, goes on to be called Zohar, Chassidus. Rashbi revealed this to them. And I will say, why do we like bonfires? Why do we like bonfires on Lag BaOmer? Because Rashbi performed the miracle. He knew this was his last day on the earth, and he did not allow the sun to set until he went ahead and gave over everything he needed to give over. So we light fires at night in order to bring light into the darkness to show that this was the miracle. The sun didn't set. Says the Chalban, why did Rashbi give over that hidden Torah? Why did he do that? Because remember, Rosa, if you think about it, the Chalban says, Rosa, the truth is, here's the irony. What we're learning tonight, you know what we're learning tonight? You know what we're learning? This is the Torah of Geula. This is the Torah of Geula. You thought what you were feeling was the schnitzel and the chili. Right? That may be what you're feeling, right? But Lamaisa, what your neshama is feeling is, we're stepping into a realm that's a different kind of place. We're stepping into Torah that's very, there's something very different happening over here. And the Chalban says, Rashbi came along and Rashbi said, we can't survive the galus without tapping into the hidden dimensions of Torah. We have to. Rashbi says, I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know it's off limits. It's not here. This is for the Torah for Geula. But Rashbi made a calculated decision to say this has to be revealed. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived through some of the darkest chapters of Jewish history, says this has to be revealed. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who saw what the Romans did to the Jewish people, said this has to be revealed. Because if Jews don't have the ability to at least connect with some pieces of the Torah of Geula, then Torah mataheh aleha, Am Yisrael mataheh aleha. And so Rashbi delves in. So he says, that's why Chachmei Yisrael, the great Torah sages throughout the generations, have pulled out little buckets, like little bits of Torah's Hanistar, little bits of the Torah of Geula, to sustain the Jew in Galus over the course of this long night. Lidlos me'otzros hasod, to literally draw Torah from the storehouses of Sod. Sod literally means a secret, but it means the hidden dimensions of Torah. Es madregos sa'atzidos, or ha'olam abba, ha'elef ha'shvi v'ha'shmini, kedei lechazek es Yisrael b'kiyom mitzvos, adei atzagas ha'tachlis. Shabbos say this is incredible. So the Chalban says on one hand, the Torah of Geula, the hidden dimensions of Torah, are obscured from us during Galus. On the other hand, the great tzaddikim of each generation have the ability to pull out some of that Torah, Torah's Hanistar, to be able to go ahead and sustain us. He goes on, B'shah shahenu malei chayim b'beis Hashem. Shabbos, get ready. Look what the Chalban says, and he restates that which he said last week. Just understand, when the Beis Hamikdash was in existence, I will say, and when we were living in a state of Geula, and Klal Yisrael was in a state of ruchnius that was appropriate, Lo chutzrichu ledaber al olam haba. I will say, there was not a need for a discussion about olam haba, the world to come, when the Beis Hamikdash stood and we were living in a state of geula. Lo chutzrichu lechapes tachlis lekiyam mitzvos. There was no need for a discussion about the reasons why we do things. I will say, why not? Why not? Why was there no discussion of olam haba? Why was there no discussion of reasons for mitzvahs? Why not? Why not? We didn't need it. It was clear. I want to be clear. I want to be clear. The clarity doesn't mean that everyone understood everything, but you don't have to understand. I'll tell you something amazing. I always try for Daf Yomi. It never usually works, but I try to chazer. Actually, never works. But today I decided. You know what? Once again, one of my starts on the project. So I was looking at Tainus a little bit, and actually I had 15 minutes in between things. So I was looking at Tainus, and there's a beautiful Gemara on Daf Dalid. And I realized the hashkach of seeing this Gemara in kind of its close connection to what the Chalban is saying. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara, listen to this, Dalid Amud Aleph all the way on the top. Amar Rava, Haitzura me'rabanan derasach, oraisohu dekamarascha. So I will say, so listen to this. Torah says, the Gemara says, if you see a Talmud Chacham who gets upset, Marascha gets upset, know that it's the Torah inside of him that's making him upset. That's the Gemara says. Torah is compared to fire, just like fire is passionate. So if you see a Talmud Chacham who gets upset, it's not that he has bad midos. It's the Torah that's driving his passion. And Rashi says, what does that mean? So Rashi says something incredible. Rashi says over here, he says, Sheyesh lo rochav leiv mitoch toraso. Torah gives one a sensitivity. Torah endows you with a sensitivity. We'll say, we know this. How do we know this? Because Lemaisa, you feel different after you learn. Right? I don't have to explain this. We know it. I sit down, I learn. It doesn't even matter what you're learning. It doesn't make any difference. I feel different after I learn Torah. So Rashi says over here, because when you learn Torah, ultimately, again, the Gemara says, Rashi says that what? Sheyesh lo rochav leiv mitoch toraso umesim lelibo yosim mishar b'nei adam. Torah creates a sensitivity. When you learn Torah, you become a more sensitive person. So the Gemara actually goes on to say, by the way, so Talmidei Chachamim often get angry because they're overly sensitive. Why are they overly sensitive? Because they learn Torah. So the next line of the Gemara is, by the way, a Talmid Chacham has to be kasha kebarzel. Talmid Chacham has to be strong like iron. Or in other words, have a tough skin. Got to have a thick skin. Torah makes you very sensitive. You have to have a thick skin in order to be able to handle your sensitivity. So I was talking about this Gemara with someone, actually with Shua Beer. I was talking about this Gemara with Shua Beer, and he asked a good shaila. He said to me, so is that, it was such a great shaila. He said, is that only if you understand what you're learning? In other words, how does Torah create sensitivity? Is it that because I know more, therefore I'm more sensitive? Like what's the dynamic? So I thought about this a second, and then I remembered there's another beautiful piece by Rabbi Nachman. So also listen to this. This is pretty wild. And if you are Hasidically challenged, you are going to find what I'm about to say terribly offensive. So as I say, now listen to this. So Rabbi Nachman says, if you're learning something and you don't understand it, what should you do? Rebbe says, move on. Now that's offensive to anyone who's gone to yeshiva, right? Because, what's the badge of courage in yeshiva? I spent 14 and a half years on a Rashi, right? That's like mamish. You should know, Chaim Volozhiner says, there's a concept of batala by lumdis also. Sometimes a person gets too involved in something and it is time to move on. Chaim Volozhiner wouldn't exactly agree with Rabbi Nachman. But Rabbi Nachman says, if you don't understand something, move on. The Rebbe says, you'll understand it the next time around. That's Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman reviewed all of Shulchan Aruch once a month. So you'll get it the next time around. Don't worry about it. So it always bothered me. I never understood. I don't understand a lot of things Rabbi Nachman says, but I never understood this piece because it seems to be antithetical. I don't understand something. Plug away at it. Okay, you want to say don't plug away at it forever. But what do you mean just move on? And what Rabbi Nachman is saying is something so incredibly profound. He's saying we often look at Torah as a body of knowledge. And therefore, Torah's only meaningful if what? If you understand it. If I don't understand what I'm learning, so that's a bracha levatala. What am I doing? And the Rebbe says, you're missing the point. What's Torah? Torah is a relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. Torah's supposed to say, you know one of the greatest differences between dating and marriage? Well, for many couples is that they liked each other during dating. It's a different discussion, right? They'll say, so again, one of the most profound differences, they'll say, when someone's dating, right, what's the one thing people on a date are most nervous about? One thing they're most nervous about? Quiet, right? Awkward silence. They'll say, what's the hallmark of a great marriage? One of the things of a great marriage? You could just sit next to your spouse. You just sit next to your spouse. We don't have to talk about anything, right? And the truth is, hopefully, in a good relationship, there's just an enjoyment of being with each other. We're not talking about anything. We're not doing anything. You're sitting here. I'm sitting here. But because there's a loving relationship, therefore, again, we just enjoy. So the Rebbe says, what's Torah? Torah is a relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. When I open up my Gemara, open up my Chalban, or whatever it is I'm opening up, I'm sitting with the Ribono Shel Olam. So if I understand what I'm learning, that's great. There's a great dialogue. There's a meaningful conversation. This is fantastic. But even if I don't understand what it is that I'm learning, I'm spending time with my Father. I'm spending time with the Ribono Shel Olam. I'm spending time with my God. I have a long-time chavrusa of mine who I introduced him to Kedushas Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdichev. And he called me up on Erev Shabbos. He's like, I don't understand. He said to me, I don't understand half of the things that I'm learning in here. And I said, either do I. But isn't it great? Isn't it great? Who says you have to understand? We forget that sometimes there is a beautiful piece of opening up a Kedushas Levi, reading the words of a tzaddik. You'll get what you get. But at the end of the day, I'm spending a few moments with the Ribono Shel Olam. I'm spending a few moments with the neshama of the tzaddik. I'm just now saying, I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for a lack of comprehension, right? I'm not advocating. We try to understand everything. We always try to understand. But there's a dynamic of Torah, of just, oh my gosh, I'm just connecting with HaKadosh. I'm just spending time with the Ribono Shel Olam. We'll say, when you're with someone who you love, and you know that you have time with them, it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're talking about. It's such a mechaya. So every single time I learn Torah, I'm spending time with my God, and He's spending time with me. So I think what the Chalban is describing, Rebbe Osai, is that feeling of spending time with the Ribono Shel Olam, where like in those moments where everything makes sense, even if I don't have a clue about what's going on, that's Geula. That's Geula. It's those moments where I recognize that I'm in a relationship and everything is clear. What do I understand? I understand very little. Very little. But at the end of the day, it's amazing how sometimes you could understand very little and yet still be so content. You know, it reminds you, one more piece and we'll go on. Rabbi Nachman says so beautifully. We should really do a Rabbi Nachman shir, maybe. All right. Rabbi Nachman says, do you know why we cover our eyes during Shema? Because the Rebbe says so beautifully, sometimes you have to close your eyes in order to really see the world and yourself as you really are. Sometimes we think what we see is the reality. And meanwhile, what we actually see with our eyes is so skewed and so corrupted and so warped. Sometimes the only way to really see is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, to close everything off. And that's what the Chalban is describing over here. So in Geula, there's no discussion of Olam Haba, because I don't need it. I mean, I believe in Olam Haba, but that's not material right now. That doesn't matter. I have clarity. There's not a discussion about reasons for mitzvahs, because they don't really matter right now. The reasons don't matter. I'm doing it because this is a relationship. So the Chalban goes on. He says, "Va'oshem miskiyakol hayam meir v'chai." Everything was alive. Everything was clear. Va'oshem misikos haTorah v'yofieha zarcho ve'iru b'chopina. And ultimately, again, the richness, the sweetness of Torah, the beauty of Torah shone forth in every corner. Ach, kisha'olam chashach aleinu. But now, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed and we were sent into Galus, and the world became darker, ukishochne afar ne'yinu, chutzrichu hachachamim ledaber al ha'asid harachok, kadei lechazek es halavavos l'shored es ahova v'hakoder ha'amar. So let's listen to this. The Chalban says, do you know when Olam Haba was introduced into the Jewish lexicon? Do you know when it was introduced? Galus. No one ever spoke about the world to come when the Beis Hamikdash was standing and things were good. No one ever spoke about it. Do you know why? No one needed it. But now in Galus, Olam Haba is a big thing. Olam Haba is a big thing. Because what is Olam Haba essentially? Olam Haba is the light at the end of the tunnel. Right? Olam Haba is like what allows the Jew, and what has allowed the Jew, both say throughout the generations, to be able to say, as difficult as things may be right now, this is not the end of the road. There's something beautiful and tremendous waiting for me. That's a new discussion. That's a Galus discussion. Because in Geula, you just don't need it. Everything is so clear. He goes on, he says, because the discussion about Olam Haba was there to describe a future existence, ultimately again to go ahead and strengthen broken bodies. Geula doesn't require a discussion of reasons. Geula doesn't require a discussion of Olam Haba, because Geula is so clear. Geula, everything makes so much sense. In Geula, Torah mitzvos are my opportunity just to spend time with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't need any light at the end of the tunnel because I'm already basking in the light. Page Memtes. Kach shator nitztamtzima begalus, niskanso liktanos rabba, kedei lefarnes beparnosa ruchlis es haibam haratzutzim. So we'll say, here's what happens. So remember again, the Chalban explained that what's galus? Remember again, Geula is an intact body. What happens in Galus? The limbs become separated from the body. As a result, Torah has to change as well, so to speak. Right? Torah has to evolve. Because now it's not a Torah that sustains the body, but rather what is it? What is it? A Torah that what? That sustains the limbs. The separate limbs. And each limb now has to figure out how to function as a distinct part apart from the body. So Torah fundamentally changes. pratis, ki Torah's kol ta v'ta b'meshech zman heyosam nifrada menutak. So we'll say this is an incredible thing. Essentially what the Chalban says is There's a Torah of the body. When the body is intact, there's a Torah that nourishes and sustains the body. That's the Torah of Geula. Galus is when the limbs are separated off the body. Well, now each limb needs something different. Right? There's not one form of sustenance. Now suddenly again, Torah changes. You understand when I say change, I don't mean like in a comprehensive way, but the form of it, right? The way it's distilled down to us, the way it's delivered is fundamentally different because now each individual limb needs something different than the body. Torah zu mechura machashachim. Shabbos says, so let's skip a little bit. Actually, skip. Let's turn to the next section. Let's begin just a few moments because again, the Chalban goes on. You get the idea. Shabbos says, so take a look. This is page Nun. Imkain. Begalus hispararnu l'rasisim. Therefore says the Chalban, we know that in Galus, we've kind of been broken apart into pieces. And I will say, I just want to point out, as I was looking at this today, I hope that the Chevra doesn't find this depressing. It's not depressing. I will say, what it is it's real. It's real. And I could tell you, since learning this Sefer, this is, I could say, like the first time in my life that I developed a real yearning and desire for Mashiach. Because the Chalban paints a picture of, because let's be honest. Let's be honest, right? We're amongst friends here. But when we speak about like Mashiach, right? And this spiritual existence, or like when the Rambam describes Olam Haba, right? How does Rambam describe Olam Haba? The righteous sit, their crown is on their head, and they're soaking in the Shechina, right? And you read that and you learn it, and what's your reaction? Well, I want to look from. So my reaction is, whoa, wow, that's incredible. What am I thinking? Is there like a pool table? Like, is there like a flat screen? Are we just sitting? Are we just sitting for eternity, looking at God? Like, is that the entirety of it? We'll say because deep down, it's not so pashut we want geula. And the reason it's not pashut that we want geula is because we don't know what geula is. Like, it's hard to yearn for something you don't know. And the truth is, if you ask me, like, am I ready for a fully spiritual experience, all spirituality all the time? I don't know. Maybe 4 to 7 days a week is good. I don't know. Like that's a lot of ruchnius. That's a lot of ruchnius to ingest. So we'll say, the Chalban paints such a different picture. It's a regular world. But imagine living without your spiritual challenges. Imagine raising our children in a world where their values weren't challenged. Imagine just being able to accept Torah and mitzvos for what they are and not feeling the constant tug of war in my neshama. This does make sense. This doesn't make sense. Well, how does this align this? And this is that. And this is outdated. And this is archaic. And this is misogynistic. And this is that. And all the labels that people love to put on our Torah Kadosh, which are so blatantly false. But that's galus. So imagine living in a world where Ruchnius is just clear. It's clear. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is clear. Torah is clear. Mitzvos are clear. My relationship with Hashem is clear. I'm still going to work, at least according to many opinions. Right? I'm still paying my bills. There's still a lot of regular life. But my Ruchnius is no longer a challenge. I will say that's a good Ula. I'm sorry?
What's the point of living?
No, because there's always still a Yetzer Hara. Right? You still have the Chira Chavshis. I'm sorry?
It's still a challenge.
There's still a challenge. 100%.
There's a clarity with it.
Correct. But the point is you're better armed to meet those challenges because the clarity is so much more present. Now again, there's a whole discussion in general about what happens to the Yetzer Hara in the Messianic era. Like what happens to the inclinations that we have when Yemos Mashiach. Okay, I don't know, maybe he'll discuss that. But look what he writes. He says, he goes on. Both says, just do another line, then we'll sing one more song, then we'll stop for tonight. He says, Begolus, hispararnu l'rasisim, right? We've been broken up into pieces. V'datenu hitstamtsa ma'od, besod hakatnos, v'hurgala b'teva amok lachosh atzmenu kinifradim, v'lidog kol echad l'matzava haruchni bilvad. Now, I will say, now here's what's happened. See, if galus is the death of the body, essentially, or more appropriately stated, the separation of the limbs of the body. So what's happened in galus? I will say, we're still from, right? There is such a proliferation of Torah, proliferation of yeshivas. Today, like especially in our age, we live like in a golden age of Yiddishkeit. It's an from like access to Torah. So what's changed? It's every man for himself. That's what's changed. In other words, when I say, we congregate with our groups, right? We have our friends, we have our kehilas, we have this. But the truth is, he says, Kol echad lematzava haruchni bilbad. Everybody is worried about their own ruchnius. That's what galus is. Galus is the chitzonius. I'm worried about making me the best version of me. Uke'es chaya, tzrichim anu lehisora ulahagdil da'atinu laharchiva lemadregas mochin de gadlus. Mochin shel geula. She mochin rechava ma'od lahargish es chaye hashchina va'am kulon. Ulaharchiv lahachil b'zichlenu mashachutz mi'Hashem amunasa v'shavanei mishachtin. So both say, as now the Chalban, now we're going to go to the shift. At least we'll mention it this week, but we're going to do it next week. So really, every shir up until now, the Chalban has been laying out for us the distinction between Galus and Geula, Panemius and Chitzonius. And now we just spent the last two shir focusing on the difference between Torah of Galus and Torah and Geula. And we'll say, now what's the shaila? How do we transition from Galus into Geula? So now we'll say, I've tasted the sweet waters of the Chalban, right? I've tasted the waters of the Chalban, right? You could even drink it even while you're fleshiks, right? You could drink the sweet waters of the Chalban. So I will say, so now I've seen this, and now what? Now what? I want this. I don't want to sit and wait for Mashiach to come, for Geula to come in order to experience this Torah of Geula. I don't want to sit and wait for Mashiach to come in order to somehow stop being a Chitzoni Jew and becoming a Panemi Jew. I want to figure out how to find my Panemius now. I want to figure out how to be part of the collective now. I want to figure out how to access the beautiful hidden dimensions of Torah now. But look what the Chalban says. V'ulam, second paragraph, page nun. Kashem ma'od latzeis mimochin elu ulagdilam. But it's difficult. It's difficult to leave the small-mindedness of Galus. It's difficult to leave the small-mindedness of Panemius and to become something bigger than just a person who's focused on himself. Why? Look what the Chalban says. Ki b'meshech meos hashanim hushru shubanu hamochin shalagalas olag mod. We've been in Galus for 2,000 years. More than 2,000 years. More than 2,000 years we've been in Galus. We'll say, we can relate this. Let's say you see how people have changed over the pandemic, right? How long has the pandemic been going on? 7 years? 8 years, right? Right? Hey, so I'll say, so remember again, you see how 2 years, in all seriousness, 2 years, look how much people have changed, right? We all know people who have literally gone crazy. They've gone off the deep end. Like literally have lost their mind about how to live normal lives. And by the way, they're fully prepared to live like in a bubble. If that's what it takes to quote unquote be safe. Which is what? Again, a person has to take precautions, a person has to be normal. So it's 2 years. That's a change that's affected in 2 years. Can you imagine, says the Chalban, a change that occurs and is reinforced over 2,000 years? 2,000 years. That's not an easy behavior to change. He says, the Galus mindset, the Chitzonius, the Dalet Amos Shal Halacha, all of these things have been reinforced within us for 2,000 years. The Kasha Ma'od L'Salkim Ulagdilam. And ultimately, again, he says, it's very difficult to shake these things. Kach. Shebiyosenu pogshim b'sifrei hakodesh mishpatei emes shechon legadlos hamochin kedugmas kol Yisrael neshama achos v'gofa mechulakim hey mitzteirim b'tzura ra'ayonis limudis. So says the Chalban something amazing. Say that's why very often when we learn Chassidus, right? We learn it and we say, "Oh, very nice," and then inside my head, what am I saying to myself? I have no idea what this is talking about. Right? I have no idea what this... So we'll say, what's the pshat? It's not a lack of intellect. I don't speak that language. Because that's the Torah of Geula. And the truth is, I was raised on the Torah of Galus. And so was my father, and my grandfather, and my great-grandfather for the last 2,000 years. So when we see these sparks of Torah's Hanistar, hidden Torah, ultimately, again, it pulls us in. There's something that pulls you. There's something that pulls you into it, but I can't really wrap my head around it. I don't know what it's talking about. And says the Chalban, that's okay. That means you're just in Galus. But the point is, there's something in that Torah that's pulling you towards it. He goes on, we really don't understand it. So we'll say, so we'll stop over here for tonight. But again, it's something to set the table. So Mirz Hashem now, we're turning a corner in the Chalban. Because up until now, the Chalban was teaching us what Galus is, right? Definitions, Pnimius and Chitzonius. Difference between Galus and Geula. Father, the difference between Torah of Galus, Torah of Geula. Now the Chalban says, and by the way, 2,000 years of reinforced Galus behavior is very difficult to break. That's why when you get exposed to Torah's Hanistar, it pulls you in, but I can't wrap my head around it. But says the Chalban, now we're going to focus on in the future Shiurim, is how could we begin to access Geula while we are still in Galus? Because Rabbi say, if we could do that, then in Meretz Hashem we could turn the tide of Galus into an ocean of Geula. We'll say we should be Zocha. Shkoyach, everyone. Maybe we'll do one more song from Erev.
Are you saying that the Torah Kabbalah is in Galus? Our Torah is in Galus.
He's in Galus also.
So Torah is not the same Torah. Torah is in Galus.
Correct. Just like the Gemara says, the emotion is in Galus also. Everything is in Galus.
That's why we don't want Talmud.
Possible. Even though again at that point it was also the Galus, but it's still closer.
That's hard to understand.